Welcome everyone to part 2 of the Career Clarity Masterclass, 5 Keys to Clarifying Your Career Direction. It's wonderful to have you here for part 2. I'm seeing in the chat a number of key takeaways from day 1. My name is Erica Mattison of Erica Mattison Coaching and Consulting, and we are going to have a fun-filled time together today, picking up where we left off yesterday. Some of the key takeaways I'm seeing in the chat are self-reflection on skills, experiences, and goals. And what else do we have? Dreaming big, envisioning helps give clarity to values and define next pragmatic steps. Others are saying starting with understanding of who I am and what I want to do. What is my question and my vision? And others are saying having an end goal in mind beyond just getting hired, focusing on what you want to do and running after that so that you can really focus your efforts. And yeah, it's Valentine's Day. So let's show some love for ourselves and for our community and for our beautiful careers, whatever stage we might be in right now. All right, so get a piece of paper. If you already have a notebook, journal that you are using for part 1, you can grab that or start anew. But I do suggest continuing where you left off. So let's keep rolling here. We covered the first 2 pieces yesterday, and today we'll cover the final 3 pieces and see what questions folks have. So your resources, that's what we're going to be talking about first. Here's the situation. Jay doubted he had what it took to create a rewarding career. And the solution was to reflect and assess his personal qualities, skills, and assets. So now it's your turn to do this. I'd like to invite you to name 3 resources that you have that can help you achieve your vision. The good news is you already did the hard part yesterday, which was you identified your question and your vision. And so now it's going to actually start to feel a little easier, because now it's a matter of saying, okay, what do I have to draw upon that can help me advance this vision? And so some kinds of resources might be personal qualities like curious, creative, collaborative. Those are words that a lot of my clients regularly use to describe themselves. So go ahead and write down in your journal, your notepad, my resources. Today, we're going to be covering my resources, then my obstacles, then my reset. So this part is my resources. And you could put something like include personal qualities such as X, Y, Z. All right, so take a moment to write that down in your journal, and then please go ahead and share in the chat what you see as your resources. And let's just start with 3. You, of course, have many more than 3, but what are 3 of your key resources that will help you advance your vision? All right, so go ahead and put those in the chat once you've come up with them. Let's take a few more seconds on this and then start to get those into the chat. And those responses are starting to roll in. Again, I'll be sharing what you're saying so that we can give voice to it. Feel free to add emojis to support people with what they're sharing. I know sometimes it can feel a little vulnerable to share these things, and it can feel like you're bragging or like it's inappropriate or, you know, uncomfortable. I'm very familiar with that. That's something that comes up with my clients quite frequently. I talk about it in my book. And it's really something that is important for us to get comfortable with. Because when we're putting ourselves forward for opportunities, we need to be comfortable talking about what we bring to the table. So this is a safe space for you to practice doing that. So some of the kinds of responses that are coming in are collaborative yet autonomous, good at public speaking, lifelong learner. I can see so many different settings where those qualities would be valuable. So I'm starting to think about transferable skills, meaning skills that we can take from one setting or role or industry to another. Something to keep in mind is if you're looking to make a career pivot, there are different levels of difficulty when it comes to pivoting. We'll get into that in a moment. Also, something to think about is why are you looking to make a change? I was just in a workshop with other career services providers, and we were talking about this topic where it's really important for you to get clear about why you're looking for a change. And if you find yourself in a situation where your job is gone, maybe not by your choosing, it's still important to say what worked for me in the previous situation and what didn't work for me so well. And so what am I looking for my next chapter? If, on the other hand, you are currently employed and you are seeking to change environments, it's really valuable to take the time to figure out what is it that is not working for you that you are looking to change. Because in many instances, you may be able to make changes in your current situation that would make it work better for you. This is going to be a combination of mindset and tactical approaches. It has to do with who you're working with, how you're working with them, how are you approaching situations? Are you establishing appropriate boundaries? Or is your work absolutely taking over your life and you feel like you don't have any personal life? You feel really tired and drained and maybe even resentful, burned out, and so forth. So there are a lot of things to really get into when it comes to career satisfaction. And sometimes we jump to the conclusion that leaving an organization or a role is the answer, when in fact, in many, many cases, there are adjustments that can be made that can help you make your current situation work better for you. A quick example of that could be that maybe your current role is no longer a good fit for you. There could be adjustments that could be made having to do with your current role, or maybe there's another type of role within your organization that could be a great fit for you. And maybe it's not very obvious what that is, or if that's even a possibility. But when you get clear about what you're looking for, what you're good at, what you have to contribute, then you can start to look for clues and you can start to position yourself for that kind of opportunity, whether or not there's an actual job posting for it today, whether or not somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have this great opportunity for you. So these are really important things to be thinking about. A moment ago, I mentioned that there are different types of career pivots. So I'm going to briefly touch on that. If you imagine a spectrum, at one end of the spectrum is a very minor change from what you have been doing. And all the way at the other end of that spectrum is a really dramatic change from what you've been doing. So think about things like role type, industry, issue area, sector, okay, for-profit, nonprofit, government, quasi-governmental. That's what I mean when I say sectors. Think about the size of the organization. These are all the kinds of things you want to be thinking about when it comes to a career pivot. Now, you can make a drastic change, but keep in mind that it's probably going to take longer. It's probably going to involve more effort and strategy and intentionality and best practices on your part to do so. And it's not something that's going to just be easy and happen overnight. So keep this in mind as you're thinking about a potential career pivot or if you're in the midst of a job search. So say you've been a project manager for many years, you might not want to continue doing it exactly in the way you have been doing it. Maybe you can continue being a project manager, but in a different setting or a different organization, a different industry, a different sector. So that's an example of a single switch, right? Where you're going from the same role type and you're applying it in a different setting. Alternatively, if you wanted to do a double switch, that would look like you've been doing project management and now you want to do something like product development or communications, or you want to be a policy analyst, or just, some other type of role. But maybe you can do that different type of role in a similar type of setting to the one that you've already been working in. So that would be a single switch. Also, if you're just switching the type of role, but you're, switching the venue, if you will. Now, a double switch is when you're doing both of those at the same time. You're switching your role type and the setting, the industry, the sector, and so forth. So a double switch is more difficult, but it can absolutely be done. And if you want to make a double switch, sometimes what people will do, and this can work really nicely, is they'll break that double switch down into two single switches. So first they might change their function, but stay within the same general kind of space, right? Same industry, sector, issue area, what have you. They might do that new role for a certain period of time, maybe a couple of years, build their network and their experience and their confidence in that space, and then make another switch into a different type of role. So that's a breakdown very quickly in terms of a single switch, a double switch. There's a great book on my website. If you go to the reading recommendations, and you can access a link to it, it's called Switchers. Highly recommend that if you are looking at making a career pivot. Okay, so we see lots of beautiful things in the chat in terms of resources that you have access to. Alumni networks, tenacity, flexibility, well-connected networks, widely applicable skill sets, curiosity, knowing how to use AI, leadership skills, being a fast learner. So many amazing resources here. Again, go ahead and throw some emojis in the chat if you're excited about any of the things that folks are sharing. Managing up and down and learning from experts and translating into other settings, negotiation. So we have so many awesome resources here that you can be tapping into for your next move. So a key takeaway here is you already have several qualities and skills to tap into. In a moment, I'll share some additional resources with you, so you might want to have a phone handy so you can grab those QR codes. I can also send them in a follow-up email. Now let's talk about your obstacles, because it would be sort of naive not to, right? I'm a realist, I'm pragmatic, I'm also a dreamer, but let's talk about some obstacles. So in this example, Vicky felt overwhelmed by obstacles, which caused her to feel demotivated and hopeless. Maybe some of you can relate to that. I know that I've felt like that at some points in my career, and most of my clients have felt like that. So in her case, a solution was to create a list of 3 specific obstacles she was most concerned could hold her back. So what I'd like you to do is allow yourself to name the things that you are concerned about. So this part is focused on your obstacles. And in this case, writing down 3 obstacles you're most concerned could hold you back. Now, a hint here is that there are internal obstacles and there are also external obstacles. Internal obstacles meaning things about your mindset, things about limiting beliefs, things about stories that have been serving you for maybe years or decades. External obstacles would be maybe bias, that's rampant. Other kinds of things that are outside of you. So think both about the internal and what is beyond you, the external. Go ahead and take a moment, jot them down, and then please add 1 to 3 of those in the chat. Thank you for sharing those. Sometimes it can feel sort of scary to give a name to the thing that's keeping us up at night, but it's also really important to do it. Some of the kinds of concerns that people have are motherhood penalty, self-doubt, like I need to meet 100% of the role's requirements in order to apply. What I will say about that is if you meet 60 to 70% plus of the requirements in a job posting and you are genuinely excited about that role, you feel like this is a good fit, you could do the job, you might have some things to learn, but you could do the job and you're up to it, you're interested in it, I would encourage you to strongly consider applying. We know in the industry that much of the time, people who have that amount of the bullet points in the job posting do get hired. That is known across the career industry. Okay. So forget about, I need to meet 100%. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into why. If an organization really likes you, and this also touches on the fact that you don't want to just be looking at job postings. You really want to be engaging with people to find out about opportunities. Okay. If an organization really likes you, they are often not going to be overly concerned with whether or not you meet 100% of the qualifications. That's one reason. Okay. Likability. Do they know you? Do they like you? Do they trust you? Right? It's the same with me and my clients. Do they know me? Do they like me? Do they trust me? They're more likely to want to choose me if they do, right? If they don't know about me, if they don't know anything about me, if they don't trust me, they don't like me, why would they want to work with me? It's the same with you as a job candidate, right? Also, a job posting is something that people made up. There's nothing about it that makes it perfect. In fact, I would argue they're all imperfect because humans are also imperfect. And sometimes the things that get put into a job posting are neither here nor there. Sometimes people think that you need a college degree to do a certain job, or you need a master's degree, or a law degree, or a PhD, or what have you. Sometimes those degrees can help, and other times it's really not necessary. So sometimes people will put things into job postings because they think they should, but it's not necessarily based on anything that is, absolute truth. And so just recognize that job postings are not perfect and take them sort of with a grain of salt. Okay. Take them as almost like a guideline. You should take them seriously. Okay. Sometimes a lot of care goes into them. So I want to acknowledge that. But don't take it to mean that you have to have absolutely 100% of what is in there or you are not a legitimate candidate. It's just not true. You do want to make sure that you very clearly convey why you are qualified and why you are a strong candidate. That's really important. But that does not mean that you need to have 100% of what is in the job posting. There are a few exceptions to certain things where, for instance, if it's a highly technical role and the organization really needs somebody who knows how to do greenhouse gas accounting or, something like that, if it's an engineering role and you need to have certain skills or training or experience, certain technical things like that are an exception. But for the great majority of roles that are out there, especially less technical roles, there really is a lot of room for interpretation and flexibility when it comes to who organizations choose to hire. So keep that in mind as you move forward. I'll touch on a couple more of the obstacles and then we'll keep going. So I'm seeing comments about challenging markets, lack of confidence, and chasing too many opportunities that seem like a good fit, but not a great fit. And so not having the focus on the ones that really are a great fit. So that's an interesting thing to call out. If you were to focus your time and energy and attention on opportunities that seemed like a really amazing fit for you, what would that look like? versus let me just apply to tons of roles that seem like they're good enough, they're okay. How does that feel and what does that look like? And so just kind of think about that, and you have to do what feels right for you. But I will say that much of the time when people are just constantly sending out job applications and really running themselves ragged or just hitting easy apply over and over and over again, it tends to wear them out, and it tends to feel really depleting and frustrating versus let me put a lot of care into a smaller number of opportunities. Let me engage with my network. Let me find out about what their needs are, what kinds of opportunities might be coming up, and have it be more of a relational one-on-one type of approach, as opposed to I'm just sending out tons of job applications into, out there and like sort of hoping that, something happens. Other folks have concerns about running out of money to continue their search. Yeah, I think, sometimes it can make sense to just take some job that maybe isn't your dream job. That's okay, right? We need to make money. We need to pay bills. What is there that maybe has some alignment with your values, interests, and skills that could be either a part-time job or consulting, or maybe it is full-time. It has to, hopefully it's going to be something you don't loathe and detest. Okay. But it can help you pay the bills. And then meanwhile, you can continue to do this important kind of work that we're doing together right now, which is establishing this foundation, increasing your clarity, learning how to get more comfortable engaging with your network, and finding out about exciting opportunities that are really aligned with what you want for, your kind of longer term life. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Okay. So keep that in mind. Seeing what other responses there are. So we have lack of direct experience in the area I want to get into next. Sure. So when it comes to that, it can be really helpful to read job postings that have to do with what you think you want to do and see what they're looking for. What kinds of skills, experiences, credentials, expertise, etc. are they looking for? Don't just read one job posting, but read a variety, and then really identify themes and see what the top things are that are coming up over and over and over again. That's what you want to focus on. If those are the roles that you're interested in, those are basically the answer to the question, how should I use my time? They're telling you. They're saying, hey, we're looking for somebody who knows these things, who can do these things, can work in this kind of setting. So then you can go out and you can research, you can volunteer, you can do all kinds of things. You can find opportunities in your current job if you are currently employed. You can create some projects if you're not currently employed that enable you to build some of these skills, and then you can get it out there through a website or LinkedIn or what have you. And that's going to help you build not only your experience and knowledge of those areas, but also your confidence, which is really key. There are a lot of things here also in the comments about economic uncertainty and the political landscape. And, those are some of those external factors, but the way that we interpret them, the way that we internalize them are actually internal obstacles. So when there's a policy decision or there is something happening in the world, we then get to decide what filter we apply to that set of events. So we get to choose our reaction to it. We get to choose what we focus on. I'll give you a quick example. I was just having a conversation with a colleague of mine who's a fellow entrepreneur. She built a really successful business, and she's at a pivot point right now where she's working in a job and she's thinking about what the next venture is that she's going to launch. She's an activist and very vocal in her industry. She has, a very well-known reputation. And we were talking about how there's an opportunity right now for small businesses, for entrepreneurs to really step into this void that we are likely going to have when it relates to what needs to happen in society. Because if federal agencies are getting substantially cut and nonprofits are losing a lot of their funding, a lot of jobs are going away. But that doesn't mean that societal needs are disappearing. People still need access to food, clothing, and shelter. People still need to feel safe. People still need community. People still need creative outlets. So those needs do not disappear. In fact, they are heightened during times when people are feeling really under attack and unsafe. So that means it creates opportunities for people to be entrepreneurial, to launch their own businesses, to form collaborations, to really fill that void. So I'm actually working with a colleague of mine right now to create a course that will help people explore whether or not entrepreneurship could be something that they are interested in pursuing. So that's coming up really soon, and I'll be sharing information with my community about that opportunity very soon. So if that's something that you might be interested in, and it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship full-time, it could be something that you do. Maybe you want to start a side business. Maybe you want to supplement your current income, or maybe you're between jobs and it's a way that you could meet your needs in the near term and then see what happens long term. Maybe you keep it as a side business, or maybe you do something else. But it just kind of gives you resiliency and enables you to generate income without being so dependent on an employer. So it's something to think about if you have any interest at all in having your own business. Yes, and somebody put in the comments that it could be a great addition to one's resume, especially if you're unemployed right now. So I would say if you're unemployed right now and you have some skills to offer and you have some interests and you have a network, you do have the beginnings of what you need to do some consulting. Now, consulting can also be pro bono, meaning that you're providing the services either for free or at a discount. And you don't have to advertise that you did the work for free, but you're still building those skills and you're still creating value. You can absolutely put that on your resume, and then you don't have to worry about having this gap on your resume. If you're doing work, if you're working on projects, if you're serving clients, what have you, that is valuable. You need to be able to talk about it. You need to be able to share about it in a cover letter, resume, an interview on LinkedIn, etc. And that can take, some figuring out. It's a process, but you can do it. And I talk about this a little bit in my book and in some of my blog posts. So if you have any interest in this at all, I would say don't rule it out and don't worry about what we call the how. How am I going to do this? How am I going to make money? How am I going to? Don't worry about that yet. That can be figured out. A quick story, I had my business as a side business for many years and then ultimately went all in with my business almost 3 years ago. So I've learned a lot about this journey over the past several years. And I also have really gotten to know a lot of people in my network who also are entrepreneurs, who are small business owners. In so many different ways. I've really sought them out and built community around this life as an entrepreneur. And we can flow in and out of being a full-time business owner, right? It doesn't have to be a permanent thing. So take a look at those resources I mentioned, my book, the course that's coming up, and my blog posts if you're interested in learning more about this. And then also the reading recommendations on my website. I do have a section that is focused on entrepreneurship. All right, so hopefully I covered some valuable points for you as it relates to obstacles. So let's keep rolling and talk about, the key takeaway here is that naming the obstacles you're concerned about makes it possible to face them systematically, right? Could you see how every single thing that you mentioned, I know I didn't get to all of them, but for the things that you mentioned in the chat that you have concerns about, I was able to systematically address every single one that I spoke about, right? So all of these have solutions, essentially. You might not be able to solve bias in the world, but there are things that you can do that can help you overcome the obstacles that feel like they are just holding you back. Whether they're external or internal, you can move through them. They don't disappear, but you can move through them. And you can make adjustments to your mindset and your approach that make you resilient and adaptable. So now let's talk about your reset. Mark was constantly starting and stopping when it came to applying himself to his career goals. And the solution was to carve out the necessary time to adopt a systematic approach. So when it comes to your reset, it's your turn. And the question here being, how soon are you ready to hit the reset button so you can learn to overcome your obstacles and make your vision your reality? Notice I said, learn to overcome your obstacles and make your vision a reality. I'm not talking about leaving your job tomorrow if you have one. I'm not talking about finding a new job tomorrow if you're in the midst of a search. I'm talking about a fresh start. Hitting reset can be really valuable when you're feeling worn down, deflated, frustrated. Those are not feelings that are going to help us attract what we desire in our lives. And so that's why I talk about hitting reset. It's a fresh start. It's a chance to do things differently, take everything that you've already been struggling through and learn some new ways, some new approaches, some new practices that you can incorporate into your life. And a hint here is to answer this question in terms of how many weeks from now are you ready to start consistently carving out at least 20 minutes per day to focus on building an amazing career? Because I believe that that's the starting place. If you can do more than 20 minutes a day, very cool, but you don't need to. As I said in part one, it's more about using your time and your energy wisely than just pouring tons of time and energy into this. It's more about the consistency than having periods where it's like, 100 hours a week and then weeks of 0. Okay. It's the consistency that is key. And that is because the consistency helps you build momentum. And momentum helps you overcome things like procrastination, fear. All right. So I'll be quiet for a moment. Write down, maybe take out your calendar, look at what you have coming up in your life. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is a real, this is in how many weeks, looking at what today's date is and looking at your life. How soon are you committing to yourself to start regularly, consistently carving out at least 20 minutes a day to focus on your career development? Go ahead and take a look at your calendar, write down the answer to yourself, and then please share in the chat. The answers are starting to roll in the chat. Very exciting. Feeling a lot of energy because I'm seeing next week from a lot of you. And some of you are even saying now. That's pretty cool. But you want to be realistic. You want to be honest with yourself. Okay. So if the answer's now, that's amazing. And if it's in 2 weeks or a month or even longer out, that's okay too. The most important thing is that you're being honest with yourself. The key takeaway here is that you can hit reset whenever you choose. Whenever you choose, it's up to you. You have control over that. If it's next week, it's next week. If it's in a month, it's in a month. If it's in 3 months, it's in 3 months. I'm going to encourage you to write down the date or circle it on your calendar or whatever you like to do to keep track of things right now. Right now. Be specific. Choose a specific date, not a week, a date. Circle that date. I'm going to share a quick story with you about John. John was at the same mission-driven organization for over 12 years, and he was seeking a new challenge and environment, but he wasn't sure what that looked like for him. He was feeling stuck and confused, and he felt certain obstacles were in his way, some of them internal and some of them external, as we've talked about. And I'm wondering, how, if at all, do you relate to John's story? Go ahead and share it in the chat. What, if anything, resonates with you? Some of you are saying 100%. Great. What about, go ahead and throw it in the chat. What about this story resonates with you? Just a sentence or so. It's great. Some of the concerns that can come up when you've been at the same organization for so long are that you can grow very attached to that organization. Maybe some of you can relate to that. Sometimes there can be fear because we don't know what else is out there. We don't know how we're going to handle things or navigate it. Also, if we haven't done a lot of job searches, maybe we don't have an up-to-date resume. We haven't interviewed in a long time. We don't really know what the market is. We don't know what we could get paid because we haven't been looking. All those kinds of things can come up when we've been at the same organization for many years. So you're saying in the chat, feeling stuck and confused, wanting something different and challenged on how to make the change. Yeah, staying too long somewhere. And how yucky that stuck feeling can be. Yeah. Some of you sharing this is part of why you went to graduate school in your 30s. You knew you needed to take on a formal process to build skills. Absolutely. So what happened? Well, John was able to, through our coaching work together, get through the obstacles. He was able to clarify his vision, and he landed a leadership role aligned with his strengths and values at a mission-driven media organization. He got a huge pay bump and excellent benefits with a hybrid work environment and dedicated colleagues, and he enhanced his confidence and executive presence. Here we are having some fun at a video shoot recording for some client success stories. So to recap, the milestone number 1, building the foundation, which is what we've been focusing on together during this masterclass. We identified what your questions are. We talked about what your vision is. You've identified some of your top resources. We've talked about some of your obstacles, and you've shared the timeline for when you are ready to hit reset. As a reminder, the steps that come next are milestone 2 is about who am I? What's important to me? What do I have to offer? Emily, my client, shared in part 1 about part of the work that she did to clarify some of those things and how valuable it was for her, how instrumental that was for her so that she could go about her search in a really intentional, centered way. The next milestone is, what am I looking for? So once you've clarified certain things about yourself, then it's time to start looking more outwardly at what kinds of opportunities could be a good fit. At that point, you're still being pretty general, okay? It's not about this exact job opening or this exact organization. That comes next. This is more, what is my ideal work environment? How do I start to bring some of these different pieces of myself together into what I want my career to look like? And next, Milestone 4 is, what are my options? This is where you start to get ultra specific, looking at particular industries, looking at particular organizations, particular job titles and roles. So that's what comes next. We've covered milestone 1 together during this masterclass, and what comes next is 2, 3, and 4. So building the foundation by identifying these 5 keys: your question, your vision, your resources, your obstacles, and your reset. That is what we have done together during this time. And I'm going to share some resources with you. We'll take some questions. So please start to think about what those are, and you can feel free to put those in the chat. If you'd like to scan the QR codes, get your phone ready. I mentioned this in part 1, I'll mention it again. The Career Growth Jumpstart is a mini program, which means that it's not going to take much of your time. It's a minimal financial investment. And what it looks like is you complete a questionnaire. The current format of it is 25 questions. It's a mix of multiple choice questions and open-ended questions. The fact that you are taking the time to answer these questions, it is going to really get you to focus and think about what your current situation is, whether you're in the midst of a search or you are thinking about a search, okay? Then after that, I will go in, I will look at your responses, and I will give you personalized feedback about what you shared. I'm not going to tell you what to go do with your life. That is not for me to say. What I will do is I will provide you with guiding questions that will help you do further self-discovery. It will help you expand your perspective and deal with those blind spots that you likely have, because we all do. And we can all benefit from an outside perspective that's non-judgmental, that's informed, that is helping you uncover things for yourself. And I will share resources and frameworks that will be helpful to you. So your investment in that is between 30 to 45 minutes to complete the questionnaire at whatever time of day you want to do the questionnaire, when you can just focus and be at your computer. And then a few minutes to review my feedback. And then some time, and I don't know exactly how much time you'll choose to put into it, but once you've hit the reset button, you're going to be ready to put in consistently 20 minutes or more per day to start implementing the things that this questionnaire has revealed and that my feedback has revealed. So that is what this looks like. It's a very micro step that you can take that will start to help you get unstuck. It's really focused on helping you clarify what your current situation is and identify some possibilities. All right, so that's the Career Growth Jumpstart. Next, clarify my direction. If you're ready for something that's more robust, more substantial, a bigger time commitment, Clarify My Direction is a course that I've poured a lot of work into. It takes my years of experience, the trainings I've participated in, the certifications I've obtained, different resources and tools and frameworks from my mentors who I've trained with, and it puts it into a container for you that's organized. It gives you very clear steps. You review certain information, you complete certain worksheets, certain questionnaires. I provide you with written feedback all throughout the program, and you have access to the group coaching sessions, which are once a month online. Our next one's coming up in a few days. So if you'd like to jump on that for this month, you'll want to join the program right away so you can get started with the first few lessons before we have that group gathering. And you also have access to the Intentional Professionals community I host, where you will have a couple different message boards available to you. One of them will be to talk with fellow participants, and one of them will be to pose questions to me, which I'll respond to within 2 business days. So you don't have to wait until the group coaching sessions to pose questions or to feel the support of the community. So that's what Clarify My Direction is. And I'm really excited to welcome more people into the program. I've enjoyed seeing the impact of it so far with the initial participants. And what some people will do is they will add one-on-one coaching to the program and have that one-on-one time as well. So that's also a possibility. If you're really looking for the one-on-one time, we can arrange that as a coaching engagement, and it can be supplemented with Clarify My Direction. So that could be a really powerful combination if you're somebody who's wanting to accelerate your process. All right. And then, as I mentioned, I have my book. This is a really short read. It's also an engaging read. There are guiding questions at the end of each chapter to help you do some journaling and help you clarify what's important to you and what you have to offer. So if you enjoyed our time during the masterclass, I think you'll also enjoy the book. And I do welcome dialogue with people who are reading the book to hear what's resonating with you, what kinds of questions are coming up for you. So if you're reading the book, please reach out. I'd love to hear from you. That will also inspire other content that I create and future books. So that contains anecdotes from my career journey and client success stories, as well as those guiding questions that I mentioned. I really appreciate your feedback on this masterclass. I've put a lot of work into it. It's gone through many iterations over a year and a half, and it's continually evolving. So I really value your feedback and will use it to inform adjustments for future programming. So please take a moment to answer a few quick questions in the survey, and I'll also send that out after, but if you can grab that QR code now, that's great. Okay, so let's take the last few minutes to answer whatever questions you might have. Please go ahead and put those in the chat. And afterwards, so if you would like to ask a question once we stop the recording, please just put yes in all caps in the chat right now, so I know that we have some people for that. Okay, we have someone already. Great. So we'll save some time for that. And in the meantime, I'm going to answer the questions that are coming in the chat. Okay, we have a few people who'd like to ask questions after. Okay, so I will reserve some time for that. Okay, so questions that are coming in. Number one, job postings and being able to differentiate those required skills and less so. All right, one thing I would say about that is, so oftentimes some job postings are constructed better than others. Not to sound judgmental, but I will say I really think that some job postings are written better than others. What do I mean by that? Some of them are really nicely organized with clear buckets about what the responsibilities are, and they I'm just going to stop the screen share. They will indicate required skills. They will indicate preferred skill or preferred qualifications, and it will be broken down really in this beautiful, organized, clear, specific way. I love when that happens. Also, you have other job postings that are not at all like that, okay? And those are tricky sometimes. They can be sort of a mess. They can just be this kind of like block of text, and they can be harder to understand and less clear. So I train my clients in what to do with either type of job posting, although there's less that you have to do to make one of those really beautiful ones work for you. And so you want to pay attention to, is there a delineation between required and preferred? They don't always use that exact language, but something along those lines. Okay, optional or some kind of language like that. So you really need to not just skim a job posting, you need to go through with, you need to analyze it. You need to break it down and really look at it very closely. One of the things that I train you to do in my courses. Not only do I have Clarify My Direction, I also have another course that's called My Best Fit. That one is really focused on, once you already have clarity about who you are, what's important to you, what you're looking for, and so forth, then really, how do you find out about opportunities? How do you develop your brand? How do you position yourself? How do you engage with your network effectively? So that's the second piece that comes after Clarify My Direction, okay? That's what I would say about your first question. The second question you had is advice on keeping up momentum, even when you are in the interview pipeline and managing multiple potential opportunities. Yes, you bring up a really important word, which is momentum. Okay, that is crucial because when you lose momentum, you tend to lose the motivation there's like this kind of heavy energy. Sometimes there's a kind of desperation that's not helpful. So it is really important to keep that momentum going. And so different strategies can work for different people. But what I'm going to do is ask the question back to the group and put in the chat, what is a time that you have noticed that you had momentum for anything? And how did you do that? What did that look like? Or how did you achieve that momentum? What helped you do that? Go ahead and put in the chat. It doesn't have to be related to a career or a job search, but how did you achieve and sustain momentum? Yeah, absolutely. So some of you are saying that having a routine is key for you to sustain momentum. Keep going with even the tiniest step. It often leads to another. Absolutely. The snowball effect, the domino effect. There's a book that I love that's called The One Thing. And in that book, they talk about identifying what the one thing is that will make everything else easier or unnecessary. So if you go to my reading recommendations page, you will locate this book. I'll put a link in the chat and, highly recommend that book. And, it's a question that you can ask yourself on a day-to-day basis. It's also a question you can ask yourself for the big picture. If you ask yourself that question for the big picture, there's that link in the chat. That book is called The One Thing. If you ask yourself the question on the big picture, what is the one thing I can do that will make everything easier or unnecessary? And you have in mind what your vision for your life already is, then you can answer that question on the macro level and then break it down into, okay, so that's the one thing, but then what does that look like for, this quarter? What does that look like for then this month? What does that look like for this week? What does that look like for today? And what does that look like for this afternoon? And so continually asking yourself questions like that. These are the kinds of frameworks that I use with my clients. Using that question can really organize your thoughts and kind of rally you so that you're focused. So that's one approach that I find can be very helpful. Okay. Any other questions that folks want to put in the chat? I'll mention, somebody shared, you feel like you're doing all the right things, checking all the boxes, reaching out to the hiring teams, and then just getting an automated rejection email. Okay. There could be a couple of different things that are going on here. One of the things that I do in the Career Growth Jumpstart is I help you pinpoint where you're running into walls, like this one that you just mentioned. It could be that there's something about your application, something about your resume that is having you get rejected immediately. Okay, that can be identified pretty quickly most of the time by a career professional. It could be that, there's something about the formatting or something like that, because a lot of organizations use applicant tracking systems, and it could be something related to that. Alternatively, it could be that, there's just so much competition. And if you are not an absolutely clear fit for the role, for instance, if it represents some kind of career pivot for you, then it could be that it's just, the odds are against you. In that case, it's going to be, and I would say in any case, it's really important that you find out about the majority of roles that you're applying to, not from job boards, but from your network. And don't forget that a lot of the really exciting opportunities are going to be things that are not yet even publicly posted. They're going to be an idea in someone's head that they have not yet even articulated into a job posting, but you are going to position yourself for that role and be there at the right time. All right, so I'm going to thank everybody for coming. I will stick around for a couple more minutes to answer some questions off the recording. Thank you everybody for being here. Congratulations for carving out the time for yourself. I hope you found this helpful. I welcome you to reach out and find a way to continue to receive support that feels right for you, for what your needs are and where you are in your journey. I look forward to being in touch with you. I appreciate you completing the questionnaire to provide feedback. I will send a follow-up email as well, so keep out an eye for that. And I wish you all a great rest of your day. Take care.